budget considerations?
They'll have to.
They will, and look, from the school security standpoint, for example, that's, to me, a higher priority than most of the things in the governor's budget, so.
Well, I agree, no, I'm just questioning, because there's a tendency to talk about for these things to happen, but no one's looking at or integrating financial implications, which we can't put another layer of expenses, so something's got to give in order to fund.
Every bill or law that gets pushed through the General Assembly comes with a fiscal note. That it's by statute limited, 15, 20 years ago, I don't even know when it was, that you have to capture and reflect on what the fiscal impact is going to be to state or municipalities. This will have that number.
And you also forecast how many people that are firmly in the Second Amendment will decide to move out of the state and the tax base associated with this.
Well, that's a theoretical number, but I'm sure someone will try to do that. I'm sure someone will try to do that.
Anything in this legislation about ammo tax or banning the sale of online ammo?
No.
No one knows, so I would still, if
But I saw that in email.
No, in fact,
no, well, yeah, because we know
you're
not this.
No, that's why we need to do this. The ammunition tax was a non-starter. That's not in there. There actually was, in the task force, there was some discussion about online sales, but it's not in there. And actually, the discussion came from the idea of, if you prohibited online sales, would you be helping local businesses? But the reality is, you would end up with small businesses. You know, you might have to go and you have to wait too long, and that would infringe on your right if you can't buy ammunition. So, no, there's no change. What you do have to do, whether you go into a store and buy it or whether you go online, is you have to show, if you have a pistol permit, you have to show your pistol permit. Now you don't have to. Now you will.
I've had to use that online, actually, for purchase of online ammunition. Vendors require knowledge of my legal ability to possess.
And that's why we were comfortable doing that, because the online people are already doing it.
I mean, I disagree with some of what you're doing, but I can understand your perspective, but I still disagree that the one thing there's one thing I would piggyback on. One of the other gentlemen said, and it was regarding antidepressant and psychotropic drug use in the U.S. And I've done some research on it, and there's been a 400% increase in the use of the prescription of those drugs in the last 15 years, approximately. And now there's approximately 10% of the U.S. population on these drugs, and the majority of them come with black-level warnings about suicidal tendency, increasing suicidal tendency. And I'm convinced, not with any evidence, but there have been a number of lawsuits that have been settled out of court that were related to homicidal tendencies of these drugs, and that's where I think a lot of this crazy behavior of 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds is coming from. These drugs are precipitating this behavior.
That's supposed to, we talked about it before, that's supposed to get captured and looked at in this mental health task forces. Is this in fact an issue, and how do we track it, and what do we do about it? Now, whether that's going to happen at the federal level or state level, I don't know, because FDA.
Well,
I agree. I think it's a fertile ground.
Actually, want to answer your question. I forget which one of the two you had. Maybe John, maybe it was yours about it. If you have a rifle that you would have to register because it is now falls under the definition of an assault weapon, you get a certificate of possession, which is what happened in 1993. You can sell that rifle in state to a federally licensed firearms dealer.
So only to a dealer, not to another individual.
In state, but you can obviously, if you want to sell it.
I mean, if I want to leave the state with it, they're not prohibiting me from leaving the state.
No, you can sell it out of state because it may not be, unless it's prohibited in that state.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't bring it back.
If it's prohibited, why would a legitimate firearms dealer want to buy it? What, you know?
Because they can sell it. They can sell it to places where it may not be prohibited.
And you can take the same platform and change the ad.
Correct.
And that's the other thing.
And a lot of them have told us that they want to do that. And so that the incentive, for example, for people to turn in the 30-round magazines to get 10s.
It's a dead end. Well, I'm not going to take it. It's illegal.
No, it's not a dead end. Some people wanted it to, but we thought this was a way that if we want to, you know, change the magazines that people have from 30 to 10s, this is the way to do it.
So I couldn't pass this down to my son.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can. I'm sorry. I thought I said that early on.
You may have, right?
That is, bequests are exemptions. You can sell it in state to a federally licensed firearms dealer.
And that was a litmus test for those of us on the fence. It's like, whoa, if this thing dies with you, that's not acceptable. That's,
Yeah, then that's confiscation.
That's
I mean, many of these guns cost a couple $1,000, it's not.
So this gentleman,
Right.
Will,
Thanks, Bill.
thanks, Bill.
Good night, thanks for
will law
Bill,
enforcement
you got the keys to
officers,
this place?
will law enforcement officers be allowed private ownership of the banned firearms?
I think they're exempt from this. aren't they?
Why?
I don't know if that applies to private, it applies to them in their capacity, how to read it.
Right, because, you know, I have a good friend who's a police officer, and their department just recently acquired Bushmasters for their patrol weapons. If they want to sign one out, they can sign one out, take it out, they bring it back. This is Shelton. I don't understand why they would be allowed private ownership. There's no need.
You know, the version of the bill, which was more distilled than what John's got the latest working draft. I thought there was an exemption for law enforcement, but there may be a line of duty. I think.
We'll have to look at, there's,
I don't know.
it may reference that language. The question is, and I'll try to find it, if not, we'll get back to you. There is, some law enforcement officials claim that they're always on duty.
Well, case in point, what happened in California?
Which case?
The officer that
Several, right?
went on a rampage.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, they're not,
Goes the other way, exactly.
Right.
But
I don't know
it
if
happens.
it's on-
It happens.
Officers are required to
I mean,
sign on his home. and
They're
then-
not immune from bad apples everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just for sure.
But they are citizens.
The citizens, they should apply universally, whether, yes, there's bad
They're not
apples
above
everywhere, but
Well, I would disagree. I think a police officer in duty as a police
I'm
officer.
talking off duty, I'm talking off duty.
But they're required to take their sidearms home, and if they're, I don't know if they're carrying.
For example, I do know this because this was an issue that I remember, that I would look at. A retired police officer is not eligible to keep what they had on the force if it's not permissible for you to have a retired police officer. So the issue, and if they're on duty, they can, that exemption. So what I need to look up is whether off duty or not.
Well, a sidearm, we can have sidearms, they can have sidearms off duty, but a banned firearm would, I think,
But they can carry more around than the they will be restricted.
My understanding was they're gonna be exempt while off duty, but John's got the most current draft. And again, the description that I was getting, distilled bill yesterday.
That would seem to violate Section 1, Article 1, Section 1 of the Connecticut State Constitution, where you're providing privileges and emoluments to one group of people that another group of people do not have.
The privilege of immunities clause is, in various state and federal constitutions, has exceptions, and some of them are public safety exceptions, and this are done. So, and this is, you know, the discussion that people have, they'll pluck. There's a body of case law that develops constitutional law, and it's, frankly, this discussion is part of it. But it's, you know, 4 words read nakedly doesn't answer the question.
And I think their position is not that they're treated differently when off duty. I'm just making their argument for them. Their position is, I believe some of them have made the position that a police officer is always on duty. So therefore, you're not treating them differently. They're off duty, you're off duty, treated them differently. On duty, we know we can give them an exception from firearms laws for police officers. We know we can do that. That's not in the Constitution.
Sure.
That's pretty settled.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for the call, because this has been informative for me. I'm not as well versed in this as some of the other guys here, but I have some concerns. So if I'm understanding this correctly, if I had 20 10-round magazines, you don't care about that, but if I also had one 13-round magazine, that's the one you care about, right?
Right.
Okay. So I guess I'm curious about how strong a push there was for confiscation, because I mean, we know in our society there's bad apples, and we're only going to get to so many of them. Some will get through, we know that. So, you know, if you get someone who goes out and goes on a shooting spree, let's say with a 13-round around magazine, they've just got a bunch of them. Now you've got a list of everyone that has a magazine, and so all those folks that may be pushing for confiscation now, not only can they make the argument like they've done, now trying to get, stronger gun control laws, but now they know who has the magazines that are over 10. So, I mean, to me, that's a serious concern. How do you respond to that? Because the next time something happens, that's likely to be the push, and now you know who's got it.
I would think the big, you're right, man. Anytime you allow government to kind of creep into your privacy, it's a concern, and it absolutely has to be a concern. It absolutely has to be. And I'm shocked by how many times we let that happen in different areas of law, privacy rights, and all kinds of things, and then and we ignore it in other parts. But it's the same argument, frankly, that with all the handgun shootings that are going on around the country. There are vastly more handgun shootings going around the country. That's where the gun violence is. So under that scenario, you would think that you would use the same registration under the handguns to come start confiscating those type of guns, because this was a Glock 19, and you could trace the twist pattern over to a certain batch group, and that hasn't happened, because frankly it can't happen legally. But it is a concern. It absolutely is. The people who deny that that's a concern, I disagree with, and I think most of the folks to the left in here, understand the concern. But it's just a function of where you draw the line. It's long drawn. Why do we allow, for me, I thought it should have been 10 rifle, 15 handgun. But regardless, that's not what appears to be coming out of the back end. Why is it 18 to 21? Why is it not 25? Why isn't it 16? That's where we drew the line. We can't have bazookas. We can't have bazookas. We can't have machine guns. No one seems to be complaining about that. I can't own a fighter jet. I can't fly a fighter jet. I can't. But you understand my point. Where do you draw the line? And frankly, the fact that we're having a discussion and saying where the line is being drawn is what makes us great as a state and a country, because we can have this discussion, and there are people, John, myself included, and a lot of other folks up there, Democrats and Republicans, that respect this discussion. They really do. They just may disagree with you. And so that has to give you some level of confidence that this isn't the first step to boom, 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 where are your guns? God bless the state who decides we're confiscating all guns. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah. Are you kidding?
Well, I have to go.
Thank you, John.
Guys, I want to thank you. Thanks, you. I do appreciate you speaking, coming here, and your time too very much. And while I disagree with some of your points, I respect your point of view, and I'll make a decision when I see the final wording of the bill.
Absolutely.
If I have a question, I'm sorry to interrupt the rest of the group, but if I have a question, I hope that I can follow up a phone call and just set my call. Thank you.
Did you get the handouts?
I do. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Eric, thank you.